Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Here I am in my local park in Vichy. I find this a really relaxing place. But for today's video, we'll be talking about the aperture in your lens. Now you can use it to improve your photography. Its relationship with the depth of field. Now you can use it for, especially for portraits and wildlife photographers, to isolate your subject from the rest of the image. Make them pop out and jump out of the photo. Also for landscape photographers, you can use the depth of field to make sure everything's sharp in your image. Right, I was just going to sit here and just relax for a minute. So how do we determine the size of the aperture and how we can control the amount of light coming through the lens? Well, there's an F number that's attributed to the size of your aperture. So I have a lens that's 28 to 70 and it goes from f2 to f22. f2 is when the aperture is at its widest opening, letting the most amount of light in. And when you go down to f22, then it's its smallest size, letting the least amount of light. So if you start off with f2 with its maximum size and you go down to f2.8, then you're halving the amount of light coming through the lens. And if you go down to f4, which is one stop down from f2.8 to f4, then you're halving the light again. So in the opposite way, if you go from f22 to f16, then you're doubling the amount of light coming through the lens. And again, if f16 to f11, you're again doubling light again. So each stop value will double the amount of light or halve the amount of light. And that's how you can control the amount of light coming through the lens. So, the depth of field, and what is it, and how does the aperture affect the size of the depth of field? Well, I've set this up as a prime example to illustrate what the depth of field does and how the size of the aperture affects your depth of field. So I'll start off with f2 and work my way to f22, and you can see the difference in the depth of field when I change the aperture all the way through. So from these series of pictures, you can see that as the F number starts to increase, the depth of field also increases all the way up to f22. So for portrait, wildlife and macro photography, you'd be looking at a smaller f-stop number to reduce the depth of field, to isolate your subject from the rest of the image. But for landscapes, you would choose a larger f-stop number to increase your depth of field. But also, your focus point wants to be 1/3 up into the image, because the depth of field is sharp 2/3 above the focus point and 1/3 below the focus point. So aiming your focus point about 1/3 into the image for landscapes would ensure the whole image would be sharp. And generally it's from f11 upwards would increase your depth of field enough to have the whole image sharp. It all depends on the lens you have as well. So when you are using small f-stop numbers like f2 and a small depth of field, then you are introducing a lot more blur into the photo. But we call this bokeh. But it can have a nice effect to the image. So you're creating a good separation from your subject of interest from the background of the image. But you're creating a really nice, soft background that can have a lovely effect, especially on weddings and other aspects of photography. So having a good understanding of the aperture and how it affects your image, you can be really creative with your photography. You can get good sharp landscape photos, you can get beautiful portraits, you can enhance your wildlife photography and your macro photography. So the other effect aperture has on your image is what we call diffraction. This generally occurs when you start to use a large f-stop number like f22. So you have to be mindful of that. And it's usually attributed to landscape photographers because they like to use large f-stop numbers to get the whole area of the image sharp and have a large depth of field. But you just have to be careful and test your lens out to see what level of diffraction starts to occur on that particular lens. So that's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. Press subscribe, hit that like button and ring that bell. That really does help the channel, and you'll see me next week in the next video. Take care.